Hello everybody, Colsaurus Dickinsoni here, and I know it's been a while since I've uploaded, but I've been on vacation. It's been a very nice break from everything, but I am finally ready to actually get back into, making videos. So without further ado, let's do the review. Today I will be reviewing the 2019 Safari Ltd. Camarasaurus. Well, first of all, let's get a couple facts about the genus Camarasaurus. First of all, Camarasaurus is a sauropod, meaning that it was a Saurischian dinosaur. Its closest relatives, other than other sauropods, were the theropods, and they were adapted for eating tall trees and being able to just eat tons and tons of plants. Also, they had a nasty whip-like tail that could be used like a bullwhip, essentially, against predators, and that was their primary defense. Not to mention, they also weighed a whole lot, and they were some of the biggest, actually the biggest dinosaurs that ever walked the earth. The biggest land animals that ever walked the earth, for that matter. And Camarasaurus is actually a pretty small sauropod. Don't get me wrong, that's still 50 feet long. That's as long as about maybe 1.5 school buses. So this is a big animal. It most likely weighed probably about 13 tons. And it was from the late Jurassic of the Morrison formation. And if you don't know where that is in Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, and that area. So they lived in the western United States, and they lived alongside animals such as Brachiosaurus, Allosaurus, Ceratosaurus, which happens to be my YouTube mascot, and a whole lot of other really neat dinosaurs. The Morrison formation is very, very interesting. And Camarasaurus is actually one of the most common dinosaurs found in the area, other than like Allosaurus. I think it's the most common sauropod. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, now that you guys know a little bit about Camarasaurus, why don't we actually get into the figure? First of all, let's talk about pose. So, when you first look at it, it is just, you can tell that it is regal. I mean, this figure is probably the best pose of a sauropod that I've ever seen. I just love the gentle curve of the neck as it kind of looks down upon something, and the foot being lifted up right there. At first, when I first saw it, I didn't think that I would like it, but man, that is an amazing touch. It looks like it's just slowly walking, and then it's just looking down at something. And the curve of the tail just completely sells it. I mean, this is an absolutely gorgeous figure. Just look at it. I mean, I have nothing else to say except the pose on this figure is phenomenal. It is literally the best sauropod pose that I have ever seen. Doug Watson surely did an amazing job sculpting this figure. So now that we have gone over the amazing pose of this figure, let's go over the detail. Now, the detail on this figure is, I'd say, about average. Sauropod figures usually get kind of let down when it comes to like sculpted detail, which is, it's kind of unfortunate, but fortunately this figure actually has a good amount. That's not to say that it's really very detailed like some other figures like the Safari Ltd. Prestosuchus, but it's fairly alright. I mean, you can see that down here on the feet, you can see all the different toes are sculpted out even though they're covered by flesh, and each of them has the one claw, but we'll get into that later. It has some very nice sculpted musculature along the front of the body right here. You can see this is where the shoulder blades would be, the scapula, and there's some nice muscles that would cover them, and you can see that the one on the right is actually higher than the one on the left, I think, if I can get it. Yeah, you can see that the one on the right is higher, and that's because it's, shifting as it's bringing up this massive foreleg. And the ones on the back, the skin is taut as it's being pulled to the ground, and on this side it's a little looser, and there's lots of nice folds along where the skin is getting pushed together, and then it's getting pulled on this side as the legs are moving apart. And then along the back, there's lots of kind of folds in the skin. I mean, this looks like a very old, wise Camarasaurus, and I just think that it's very nice. However, there's lots of, it looks very elephantine. That's what I have to say about it. Unfortunately, that's something that kind of happens a lot with sauropods. Elephants are not a very good analog for them. This is getting a little scientific, which I will save for the scientific accuracy part, but I just want to say that I don't think that it should look as elephant-like as it should. I feel like the skin should not be as wrinkly. I feel like it should be a little bit smoother. I mean, granted, it's a nice artistic touch, but I'll get to that in the scientific portion. And you can see there's a very nice kind of fold right there. I do think that this one is nice, but yeah. I think that they went a little bit overboard with the wrinkles. That's what I have to say. But otherwise, this part of the detail looks good. You can see that also the muscles, which would attach to the pelvis, are nice, and the pelvis is nice and broad. But again, I'm getting too far into scientific stuff, and we're not there yet. Now let's look at the head sculpt. So you can see that it is very it looks regal. That's the only, majestic. Those are the two words that I could describe the facial expression of this animal. Granted, I think the detail on the head is somewhat lackluster considering some of the other sauropod heads that Safari has made, but at the same time, it's kind of nice. It looks very solemn, the expression on this figure. You can see that it's almost frowning, but it doesn't look sad. It just looks, I don't know how to explain it. But there's a nice ear hole sculpted right there. I don't know if the light, because I don't really have the best lighting. And the nostril is in the correct position. I really like the little crest right there, which we know Camarasaurus had. And something that's speculative right there, I'll get into this more in the scientific portion, is that Doug Watson sculpted a beak on this sauropod, which is, it's interesting. I don't really draw my sauropods with beaks, but it's a very nice touch, and I just think that detail on this figure it's good. It is very good. It's not something that detracts from the overall feel of the figure, but it is still something to keep in mind. If you like 100% accurate sauropods, then this probably isn't the figure for you. But if you like a little bit of speculation like me, then this is the perfect figure for you. Alright, let's get into one of my favorite parts about this figure, which is the paint. It's phenomenal. I love the color palette. Earth tones, like these kind of reddish, rusty orange browns on the back, the stripes, the banding is amazing, and I love banding in any figure. That's why I love things like some species of monitor lizard have bandings, and I absolutely love monitors. That's not the only reason I love monitors, though, obviously. And you can see that it has this very nice gray. It almost looks blue on the camera, but it's much more gray in person. but it is kind of a bluish gray that kind of comes through, but it's not like so bright that it's not believable. And you can see that it slowly fades into this cream, but the cream is like dirty and it's weathered and it just looks very old. Again, that's what I have to say. This looks like a very old sauropod that is just like it, it's just, I don't really know how to explain it, but it's kind of like if you took a sauropod from when I was a kid, like from some of the movies, like Land Before Time and things like that. You took some of those dinosaurs and you made them accurate to today's standards. This is what they would look like right here. And I love that, because it combines kind of the older type of depictions of dinosaurs with today's knowledge, and I just think that's incredible. And especially the paint on the face, that creamish white that comes up there, that is a great touch. I feel like there's a few places that I feel that the paint should be a little bit better. On the claws, if you can see that. The claws are not painted, and in fact, this one is cream and this one is gray. So that's something to think about if you're wanting to get this figure. And none of them are painted a different color. And as well as the quote-unquote beak that it has, you can see barely if you look at it. I don't even know if you can see it on camera, but it's kind of like a ridge right there. But it would have been nice if it was a little bit of a different color to actually show that it had more of a beak. And also the paint along the mouth looks a little bit cartoonish. But like the eye looks amazing. You can see that there's like an orangish iris, and then there's black on either corner, and I just think that must be hard to do, considering that these are all hand painted as well. Like, that's kind of hard. I've tried repainting figures and it is very hard, so to get this level of paint, even though there's a couple of places that I would kind of change, it still looks incredible. Okay, now my favorite part of any review is the scientific accuracy of the figure. Companies should be kind of getting as much accuracy as they can, because these are really meant for kids, and if kids see that a dinosaur is inaccurate in their dinosaur toy, then they'll kind of grow up thinking that said dinosaur looks a different way. I know that happened to me with a bunch of mine when I was a kid. And I know that science is always changing, so this probably won't be the standard of Camarasaurus for the next 30 years, but still, I feel like in this time, I think we should be promoting the most accurate representation of a dinosaur that we can. First, let's start with, the integument, the skin. Sauropods were scaly. I think that's to our current knowledge. They were most likely scaly. They weren't very fluffy, because that would kind of keep in too much heat. But who knows, they could have been sparsely coated with feathers, and I know that feathers can also thermoregulate an animal, like they can repel as much heat as they absorb, but I feel like that wrinkles in the skin and all that I don't like that. It's not that I just don't, I think it looks fine, but that's not very accurate. That's a very old misconception about sauropods, is that they were very wrinkly and they had elephant-like skin, which we now know is not true. Mostly just because, why would they? There's not really a reason that they would have wrinkly skin. But some of the wrinkles are acceptable, like, for instance, this kind of fold in the skin. Some of the skin folds are okay, but wrinkles are not very accurate. All the proportions seem fairly standard for a Camarasaurus. If you look at the head, you can see that it looks a little bit elongated, but that's just because of the beak. And beaks, no Camarasaurus has been preserved with a beak, but it is a nice speculative artistic limerence to put on this figure. I really like that Safari Ltd is actually branching out into more speculative, adaptations. Actually, I wrote a review for one of their figures, the Brachiosaurus, and I actually said that there should be more speculation in these figures, and I think that this is my answer right here. That a Camarasaurus with a beak. It's not my first guess when I'd say speculation, but still, it's just showing that speculation is becoming a bigger and bigger part of paleo art, which I think is amazing. If you look, you can see that each of the front feet have one big thumb claw, which is accurate. None of the other toes would be exposed except for the claw. And on the back, there are 3 claws, and that is also very up to date with what we know of Camarasaurus. There's nothing really much more to add about the accuracy, because it's very conservative, but at the same time has a lot of speculation, and I love that. If you couldn't tell already, I think this figure is amazing. I don't know about you guys, but I would highly recommend this figure. And that brings us to kind of some last thoughts and opinions on it. It is a very nice figure, and I'd highly recommend it. I think it's about $20. At least it was $20 where I got it, and maybe cheaper online. But it's great. It's a very nice size for a sauropod. It looks kind of big, but it was smaller than I was expecting. It is about the average size for a sauropod figure. So first of all, I think we should put in the Ceratosaurus as a standard for everything. So you can see that it's very well scaled, I'd say, considering that Camarasaurus was a pretty small sauropod. I think that it scales up with the Ceratosaurus well, considering that they're both from the same place and time. Next, let's bring in not a close cousin, but a relative of Camarasaurus, the Carnegie 2008 Brachiosaurus. These two figures look great together, I'd say, considering they're both Morrison formation sauropods, and my sauropod collection is growing by the month, which is not the best thing because sauropod figures are quite a bit of money. But you can see that it is smaller than the 2008 Brachiosaurus, so if any of you guys have it, then you guys can know that it's smaller. However, I feel like never mind, this one's heavier as well. It looks to be heavier, but actually the Brachiosaurus is heavier as well. And finally, the last figure that we will size compare it with would be the last figure that I reviewed, which was a very long time ago, but the Safari Ltd 2014, that's what I was going to say, Sigmoimus. That was the last one I reviewed, so there's nothing that they have in common, except that I reviewed both of them. But yeah, so they scale up pretty well. Yeah, and you guys can go check out a review for this guy if you want to see it. I'll leave it down in the description, or if you're watching a playlist, then you most likely already saw this guy's review. So, you guys can pick this guy up on safarilimited.com or amazon.com/safarilimited, I think. I could be wrong. Or you could just look up into Google Safari Ltd 2019 Camarasaurus for sale. And, I hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, don't feel afraid to leave a like. And while you're down there, might might as well hit the subscribe button and turn on those post notifications so you can be notified every time that I upload a video just like this one. Tell me what you think about this figure in the comments. Say any critiques that you have for it, or just anything that you'd like to say in the comments. I'll leave a link to where you can buy this guy in the description in case you want to just go ahead and order it, which I'd highly recommend you do. You can email me fan art to coledickinson67@gmail.com and follow me on Instagram at Colesaurus_Dickinsoni. And without further ado, Colesaurus Dickinsoni, signing out.